Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the show. Joining me today is Catherine McKenna, who served as the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and most recently served as the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Hi there, Minister. Thank you for joining me, or I guess former Minister. Maybe I'll start out with a little bit about why did you get involved in politics when you first decided to run for office?
Well, it's a really good question, Wyatt, and I'm really excited to be joining your show. I decided that I felt we were on the wrong track in Canada. There were issues I really cared about. So climate change was an issue I really cared about. I really cared about international issues and Canada's role in the world. I cared about Indigenous peoples, in particular Indigenous youth. And I felt like we needed a new government if we were actually going to be ambitious on climate action, if we're going to play a positive role in the world, if we're going to help support Indigenous youth. So I just decided people have to step up and run. So I decided to run.
And obviously, one of the large questions that I think you've touched on quite a bit since announcing you weren't going to run for office, but maybe just highlight some of the reasons you decided not to run again. I know in your initial press conference you said it was because you made a promise to yourself that once the two things were completed that you got into politics to do, you would leave. But are there any other reasons?
Well, I mean, I think that, as I say, go into politics to do something, not to be somebody. And I felt that I had worked really hard on climate change. That was an issue I really cared passionately about. And so I felt like it was time to tackle that issue from a different way. Internationally, I think we have a lot of work to do. So a lot of people are focused on the big climate conference coming up in Glasgow, but we got a lot more work to do. And I think there's some lessons that people can learn, countries can learn from Canada, like getting a price on pollution and phasing out coal. So that was one of the reasons. The second reason is I have kids. So I have three kids, and politics is hard. It takes away a lot of your time from, well, in my case, from my kids. And so I decided, you know what, after the pandemic, which was, well, we're still in the pandemic, but it was just really hard on everyone. I thought, you know what, time to move on, do something different, take a little more control over my schedule and my life. So yeah, there you go.
When you decided not to run again, obviously you would have had to do a lot of reflecting on different things. I think one thing that many people and many liberals think of you for is for creating the carbon pricing pollution plan. So maybe speak a little bit about that plan and what kind of made you and your team in the government and in the first mandate of the Liberal Party want to create a carbon pricing pollution plan.
Well, why you asked like really good questions. So thanks for that. Look, if you're going to tackle climate change, there's a number of things you need to do, but a price, you have to have the right incentives for people to actually reduce emissions and for businesses. And one of the really important tools is putting a price on pollution. People don't always understand it. What does it mean? Like, so you pay a little more for gas and you're like, well, I could save money if I took the bus, if I bought an electric car. And so it's to help folks say, I want to save money. So it's not so you pay more, so you actually pay less. And it's been shown to work in British Columbia. They have a price on pollution, the same in Quebec. And so when the Prime Minister asked me to be Minister of Environment and Climate Change, we ran on a platform, and one of them was to get a climate plan for Canada, but to have a price on pollution. Now, I knew this was going to be very, very hard. There were a number of conservative premiers who did not support putting a price on pollution. And so it was a really tough thing to do. We tried to negotiate with all the provinces and territories. We said you can do different systems, and some didn't want to do it. So we just imposed it. And we had to go all the way to the Supreme Court because they fought us. And then the Supreme Court decided that it was within the jurisdiction. It was a power that federal government within their power to put a price on pollution. And that was important because in the court, they said pollution doesn't know any borders, right? Like, so if you don't have this tool as a federal government, how are you going to go internationally, for example, and say we're tackling climate change if you can't actually do it at home? So a very important decision. I was very proud of it. It was very hard. Some people were very angry at me, especially conservative premiers. But anyway, we did it.
You mentioned that some people were angry and it became a bit of a divisive issue. But why do you think that is? Like, why do you think out of any issue that the government decided to take action on, why do you think the carbon pricing pollution plan was such a controversial issue among conservative premiers and just conservatives in general?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, I think you've got to distinguish between premiers and regular people. So, I mean, these are politicians. I think they decided that this was a good issue to fight us on, that they would get the support of the public. It turned out they were wrong because we were reelected, and parties that supported a price on pollution, our majority of Canadians voted for them. But I think for regular people, some regular people felt that some of them felt that they were being targeted. So say you worked in the oil and gas sector, that you were saying that they were bad or their job was bad, or they were threatened because, maybe in the future we wouldn't be relying on oil and gas. And so I think that climate change, I won't even just say the price on pollution, but climate change can be a pretty fiery, I don't know if that's like hilarious that I say that, but a pretty fiery issue. And I mean, there's some people who just don't want to act at all. There's some people who don't even believe in the science behind climate change. And so, yes, there was a lot of noise around this issue. And I think the premiers hopped it up, right? They kind of went after me and went after the price on pollution. So that also, I think, had an impact as well.
And obviously, when we look at the most recent federal election, Ottawa Centre has a new MP, Yasser Naqvi. He's obviously very experienced as well, being a former provincial cabinet minister. But is there anything that you've learned in federal politics that you'd be able to recommend to the new MP for your riding of Ottawa Centre?
Well, I think Yasser knows this, but that you're first and foremost elected to represent the people in your riding. And so that even if you have a fancy job, you're a minister, you need to, spend every day thinking about how do you improve your community? How do you support people in your community? Because you won't get reelected, but more importantly, you won't be able to make a difference in the lives of people. And that's hard because you're very busy. I mean, I guess the other piece of advice is, just be your own person. I tried to do that. I mean, it's hard in politics because people, they kind of want you to look a certain way or act a certain way, or they give you speaking points. I'm not very good on talking points. You're supposed to be told exactly what to say and you're supposed to say them. And I was like, I don't really do this. To keep you out of trouble, but then people don't like it, right? They think you're not a real person. And so I think it's just important. And I would say this to anyone who goes into politics, just be you. And people will give you all sorts of advice and they'll kind of sometimes make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. But, and I mean, listen to people a bit, but it was really important to me that I was always just the same person who got into politics. I was just before politics. I was just a normal person trying to do my job.
And what would be, still on the topic of the federal election, what would be just your overall reaction to the results of the federal election? Obviously, you were in government. Now you're not in government. So what would just be your reaction looking back on the results of the election?
Well, we had an election. I mean, we didn't get a huge change. I don't know. I mean, in a way, I understand why some Canadians were frustrated. They're like, why are we doing this? And in the end, I mean, Canadians are always right. I like to say that, they voted the same way. So, I mean, but I think there are some things that are important. We had a new climate plan. So we had different measures that we included, including the oil and gas sector is going to have to do more to tackle emissions. And so I think there are some good things coming out of the election because we got another mandate. And so I hope we use it. My view is go big or go home. And climate change is really, for me, the most important issue. And I think we just have to just push as hard as we can. We have a new mandate, just go for it.
Okay, Minister. Well, that was my final question. So thank you again for joining me. And it's been great chatting with you. And again, thank you for making the time.
Wyatt, you're awesome. One thing I'm going to say to your viewers, stay tuned. I'm going to COP26 and I'm going to be announcing a new initiative. So hopefully some of your viewers will participate.